Welcome to another edition of Influence, the global podcast that shines the spotlight on the influencer marketing industry. My name is Gordon Bennister. And for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm a keynote speaker, trainer, and consultant in the sector and published author on influencer marketing strategy. In this podcast series, you'll hear me interview all sorts of people from the world of influencer marketing. But before we start, please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast series just to make sure that you don't miss an episode. Now, in today's episode, I'm joined by Luise Hasse, who is a model and TV personality and has appeared in no less than 3 reality TV shows and is also an established micro influencer. 2 of the shows have yet to be aired, but expected to have some quite sizable viewing figures. And so Louise talks about her experiences and how influencers can grow their personal brand by becoming a TV personality.
As you rightly said, I'm a model. I work in television as well as having an own e-commerce startup. So I'm trying to divide my time between working my day job as a model through my agencies, as well as through my network, as well as doing bits and pieces in TV, and yeah, also being very much active on social media and leveraging my following there as a micro influencer at the moment.
But you're also a linguist, you were telling me a little bit before, weren't you? I think you speak a number of languages, don't you, as well?
Yes, exactly. I grew up, so I'm Latvian German by origin. So Latvian and German is my 2 native languages, and yeah, I do a bit of bits and pieces in translation as well.
So very much an entrepreneur as well.
Well, I don't know if you could call me that way just yet, but there is definitely entrepreneurial projects that are going to shape my near future. So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about it in a bit.
Which is great. So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about you've appeared in 2 TV reality programs yet to be aired, I understand. So I know there's going to be
Yes.
some confidentiality around that. But
So I'm sorry.
sorry, so tell us about the first one, which is the fashion show in the sky. Is that right? I can't say that.
So the first one was actually a dating show that I was aired in a year ago. So that's actually aired. I've participated in 3 reality TV shows so far.
Okay.
So one of them is Eating with My Ex on BBC, and that happened sort of by accident. I was scouted through my former partner and good friend of mine who was approached by one of the casting directors and introduced us to the opportunity to be on television. So that happened during the pandemic because I worked as a full-time model before the pandemic. Then everything became a little bit more difficult in my industry, and I had to sort of find an alternative on how to busy myself. And there was very little to do at that time. And I thought, well, why not try something that I have never tried before? But going on a reality TV show with no previous TV experience was a bit of a hassle, was a bit of an unexpected surprise to some extent. Exactly, it shocked the system a little bit. But it was not a massive appearance as per se, because it was only a half an hour episode on BBC and on BBC iPlayer. So it received a bit of momentum, but not too much, because you think, well, you're on there for half an hour, but you also, there's going to be different couples, they're talking about their former relationship, and they're talking about issues, and obviously the production companies want a little bit of drama, and then you come out of it and ask yourself, well, do you want to see that person again or not? That was my first experience, and it wasn't so challenging. It was very, very natural. So people were not really trying to put me into a certain box or give me a certain role, but it all came incredibly natural and organic.
Good.
Which is, well, what led me to consider more reality TV, because once the show aired, and that happened about, I think, 6 to 9 months later, so we filmed it mid 2020, and it came out early 2021. So there was a bit of a delay between having it filmed and actually seeing it on television.
And what reaction?
And to my surprise,
Sorry, I was going to say, what reaction did you have when it aired? Did your social media increase? Did you have comments? What were the sort of immediate reactions?
I don't think I had so much of an increase, also due to the fact that it was a very short appearance and that our full names, for example, were not disclosed on the BBC website, and it would have been made, I think, quite hard to find the person who's been involved in it. But yet I had people who found me on Instagram and on Facebook. They added and contacted me on there, and I have to say I got some very, very, very lovely comments and some very lovely feedback about the show, which I wasn't so sure about because I had quite an emotional experience on the show. I even bursted into tears at some point because the questions got extremely personal, and when there's real feelings and real emotions involved, that obviously makes good television, but at the same time you never know how people perceive these emotions and how people are going to react to it. So I had actually a very positive experience afterwards, which I haven't necessarily expected.
Yeah, because I know some of, if you think of Love Island, for example, and some of the issues that have been labeled around that show in particular, that has had a very mixed reaction from not only, I mean, obviously it's a much, much bigger audience per se, gathered momentum, but sadly, you've had people that have died as a result of the show or things like that. And because I think whilst that level of media attention is so great for some people that are ill-equipped to handle it, both positive and negative, isn't it? I mean, people's social media can just absolutely blow up. I mean, I knew somebody that was on the Too Hot to Handle TV show, which you may be familiar with. And okay, right. Well, it was.
I don't watch much television myself, funnily enough, so I don't actually know. But well, I guess it's quite a popular one here.
It was actually #1 on Netflix, and it came out when we started lockdown. But this particular individual had around 2,500 followers on her Instagram, and then on that Thursday before it aired, and a week later, she'd surpassed 1 million followers in just 1 week, and that was intense amount of exposure. Well, obviously, it appeared in America as well, so of course there's a huge audience there. So that's interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
So
it's interesting listening to what you were saying there about the personal reactions and feelings, because that's also a challenge online for a lot of influencers. People think, oh, these influencers, they're earning lots of money, they're having a life of O'Reilly, but actually you have to be quite brave about accepting the bad comments, the trolls sometimes, and the bad, and the good. If somebody doesn't like you in a bar, they could say it to your face, and there's 2 or 3 people there. But when you're online, it's very, very visible, isn't it? Amongst a lot of people. I mean, fortunately, I think you're saying you've got some positive comments, but it's a challenge, isn't it?
There's obviously 2 big shows that are going to air, which is going to be much bigger than the mini appearance that I've done about 2 years ago. So that is going to be very interesting, because the second TV opportunity that came up was beginning of sort of early springtime this year, to go on a business reality TV show, which is similar to The Apprentice, but it's not The Apprentice, but it's a very similar format. And that's probably about it. I can't disclose anything else about what exactly it is and where it is going to be aired. But that was sort of a multi-episode series. So there is also going to be multiple seasons to it and multiple episodes where I'm going to be seen and be featured. So there is more of an opportunity to get to know me as an individual, as well as the other contestants, and that might evoke also some positive and some negative commentary alike, because I guess the more you reveal about yourself, the more vulnerable you make yourself to a wider audience. And there's there's another TV show that I've completed very recently, which plays in the Himalayas. So we went to do a new Guinness World Record for the highest altitude fashion show in the world on Mount Everest.
Which is
And
amazing, isn't it? I
that
mean,
was,
that I can't wait to see that. I mean, that's going to create
mm,
huge amounts of attention just because it's a Guinness Book of Records as well, isn't it? Wow.
mm. I mean, it's an Asian production company that looked after the TV experience of it. So there is going to be probably a lot of reach in Asia. Not sure how much reach it will have internationally, but I guess we will see once it's out next year as well. So these are the two big opportunities that I've joined, and obviously the more people see you, well, the more exposure you get. And what I personally hope from it, obviously, you had influences on your show, and your show is more or less about influence. And I guess because of that quality content and that quality exposure, I would think that my social media will definitely improve in terms of numbers from next year. So yeah, touch wood.
I would suggest it might even blow up. I mean, it literally could go stratospheric if you get the sort of media attention as well, like the newspapers and mainstream media really getting attached to it. I mean, some of these shows now on BBC, Netflix, on whatever, even some of the other, and particularly mention Asia.
Mm,
Reality TV goes so well in Asia. They love it, don't they? They
mm.
really do. So that will be really interesting.
I
Um,
know much less about the market over there, but I can only judge from what we've experienced so far. So, but at the same time, I don't want to, have any type of expectations. Maybe not that much is going to happen, and but maybe a lot is going to happen. So I'm trying to sort of keep a very neutral attitude towards it, I
and
guess.
I think that's you always strike me as very level-headed. You're not you are you sort of understand some of the things that may well come out of this, but
Mm.
also you're keeping your expectations reasonable as well. So I think that's really good. Just out of interest, do the production companies give you advice about this, about how to manage the potential exposure?
So I worked with 3 productions so far, and the 2 that were based in Great Britain always have a psychologist doing an assessment here. I think that happened after there was some death story on Love Island or on some other big television show,
Indeed.
that people realized, well, it might be really good to check up on people and really make sure they are psychologically prepared for whatever could happen. So, and that only involves a psychologist doing a little assessment on you, whether you're stable emotionally, if you have a stable family history, if you had you have an overall stable life, I guess, and if you're balanced emotionally and physically and psychologically, I guess.
Um,
um, so that is at least something that production companies are required to do in this country, but it's not the case in every other country. For example, when I've done the one in Asia, I think that wasn't really much of a requirement there. Well, I guess it really depends on what production you're working with, and also what country you work with, and what type of regulations are in place.
Yeah, I mean, what could happen, and I'm sure you want this to happen, is you could get more brand partnerships as a result of this, because at the end of the
Mm,
day, brands want audiences, and particularly ones that are in the spotlight. And we've actually seen people like Molly May has gone on to do big things with big clothing brands and others. Um, so, what's your thoughts around sort of brand partnerships? Are you open to that? Do you do any at the moment? I think
mm.
you said to me you did, didn't you?
Yes, so I have collaborative partnerships with some fashion and wellness brands, which is at the moment on a gifted level or a small paid partnership. But obviously, once my level of exposure reaches a certain level, I think there can be bigger partnerships negotiated. Um, I like to refer to someone like a Kendall or Kylie Jenner, who launched her own brand through her exposure and really managed to monetize massively through her exposure and through her
Mm,
popularity, I guess.
you did, yeah.
And this is what a lot of big influencers do nowadays. They try to sort of maybe create an own brand under their own name, but with the aid of professionals who are working in fashion and in beauty or in wellness, to aid their own brand and their own commercial opportunity. So this is definitely I keep looking at the moment, and I think this is where you as an influencer can really become an entrepreneur and leverage the type of following that you have. So this is definitely what I'm looking into for early next year. But what brands are also looking at, and I'm aware that you have a network of people and also of brands that are interested in such partnerships, but who are struggling to find suitable influencers. I think it's really important for people to see consistency, or to see a certain level of branding. I mean, if I'm just some other influencer who is just taking out whatever she can get hold of, I think that's not going to lead me very far. But just to give you an example, the business show that I went on supported my potential brand vision in sustainability. So I tried to place myself in a sphere where I'm sort of a spokesperson for a sustainable future or sustainable business. And the same happened for the reality TV show that was happening in the mountains, because that was also done in connection with sustainability and sustainable fashion, as well as global warming. So I guess if you, as an influencer coming out of these TV shows, can manage to, I guess, position yourself in a reasonable and in a strong way, that is obviously what brands are looking out for. It doesn't mean that I restrict myself too much, but sometimes I think it's also good to turn offers down. If I say, well, in the future, I want to establish myself as a sustainability focused entrepreneur / influencer, then I also have to work with brands that are aligning with that type of vision. If
You
that makes sense.
absolutely do. Totally right with that. And I think if you think about particularly the women that are fashion influencers, there's almost too many.
Mm,
So, it's so important for you to find your niche,
mhm,
find your target that actually what I always talk about, what do people say about you when you're not in the room? Louise is great because she talks about blah blah blah,
mm,
whatever that is. And you are absolutely right about consistency, and that
mm,
means not only you talking about it, but that appearing on all your feeds,
mm,
on your
mm.
Instagram, and not on your YouTube channels, particularly if you're involved in wanting to become a TV personality as well. Whether or not that's a presenter or just a personality in your own right, I think all of
We'll
those.
see.
Yeah, and who knows where that's going to come. But I think having strong values as well that
Mm,
people can resonate with, and that's what some of the best influencers really do.
mm,
And they know their numbers. They know what type of content their audience like to see, so they do more of it.
mm.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting. I mean, what are the challenges that you've found though with becoming a micro influencer? Presumably, what's your audience now on
I've
Instagram?
nearly 12,000 followers on
12,000.
Instagram, so
Well,
it's not a massive amount as we speak, but we
no,
it
no.
may improve over time very, very soon.
Well, it's great, and I'm sure it will. In this day and age, it's all about engagement, and I know you have a very high engagement, which is
Yes, surprisingly.
an interesting point, because this is why a lot of brands do like to work with micro
Mm,
influencers, because you're seen to be or able to be much more responsive. So if you had, let's
mm,
just say, 100 comments, it's not it's doable for you to respond to those people, even with a like or a quick response. You could scroll down and you can
mm,
actually, for the person that's following you, makes them feel like, I'm not just another follower, I'm somebody that
mm,
has made a comment and Louise has responded. And that's
mm,
what I think is really good. Now, roll on when you become super big, with maybe 500,000 followers potentially, or something that could be quite substantial. One of the
mm,
difficulties and challenges is being able to respond to that audience. How would
mm.
you, uh, and let's just take that real life example. It's important that you are seen to be engaging and responsive to your audience. How do
Mm.
you see yourself managing that?
How do I see myself managing? Well, luckily I have not had the experience yet of being overwhelmed by my social media. Sometimes even now at this stage, I can get, I guess, over my head if there's a lot of content and people keep engaging with it a lot. But at the same time, I think what a lot of celebrities do, they hire someone to
Well, that was my
look
answer.
after their social media
That,
for them.
well, that was what I was going to ask you.
Mm.
Would you, is that something that you would consider, is having a team to support you doing just that?
I, I, I will honestly tell you, I'm not sure, and I don't know just yet. I guess it depends on the amount of work, but at the same time, I think social media is also something that's still very individual and very private and should be authentic. So people should know that the people they're interacting with, the person is actually the person that they are looking at. Well, if they think they interact with Louise, it should be Louise, right? Um, or if I do any type of brand partnerships, or I'm in the process of creating my own brand at the moment. So then they're interacting with the brand. They're not interacting with me directly.
Right.
So that should definitely be kept consistent as well. But
Yeah.
well, I will see how much and how well I could manage that, and potentially not manage. But I think authenticity and I think this is what makes influencers or even big celebrities so popular on social media, is the fact that people feel they are really interacting with their favorite celebrity.
Right.
Because you can just comment underneath a Paris Hilton's photo and potentially she will respond. And
Mm.
then, you'd like to think, well, this is actually the Paris Hilton that we know and love that is responding to you.
Yeah.
And I think this is what I guess makes people also very excited to engage in platforms like Instagram or Twitter or Facebook.
No, absolutely agree with you. And
Mm,
I too have done that, where I've connected with some very famous people, and they've responded, and then you build up a bit of you can build up a bit of a relationship with those people,
mm,
which is great. And ideally, that's the way to turn followers, of course, into fans.
mm, mm, mm,
And fans, what do fans do? They tell other people about you or your brand, and that's arguably what you really want at the moment, is when
mm,
uh,
mm, mm.
they are your mini foot soldiers, as I
No,
call it.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think the other powerful thing about social media is verifications. So I mean, you've seen Instagram accounts with blue ticks to signify that, well, this is the actual person you're talking to, but this is also someone of significance. And I think what distinguishes a TV personality from just some influencer is the fact that they have a better and easier way to get blue tick approved, because they are really a person out there in the media, in the press, on television. So I guess people are a bit more, or also brands are a bit more receptive towards people that have blue ticks and people who are verified personalities. And that will also drive maybe a better level or higher level of sponsorship.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
because it's just a credibility factor. It just means that probably also most of your following is authentic. And you talked about engagement rates before, and I think one of the key things for me was really to keep my following always organic. I know that people keep buying followers, or they keep buying engagement, like comments and likes. And I think first of all, it's stupid because brands can see that.
absolutely,
There
they
is
can. Yeah.
there's platforms out there where you can see and monitor people's engagement over time, and if they see like a sharp increase out of nowhere, then it may mean, okay, either you become a star overnight, or it means that you just bought yourself $10,000 or whatever it is. And I think it's not a very smart decision. However, nowadays I think Instagram made it much more difficult for influencers to grow, because they changed the algorithm so much.
They
So
did.
whereas most of my following came through the early stages of Instagram when I just joined Instagram, whereas now it's increasing, but it's increasing much slower than it used to increase. So I think this is maybe one thing that people keep forgetting. I mean, there's more users out there than ever, and there's also more influencers out there than ever. So you as a user will not follow each and every influencer that you see there, but you might be much more selective. So this is why it's so difficult for influencers to grow, because also their audience has become more selective. Whereas if you go on television, you have maybe a bit more personable exposure. People can get to know you as a personality and what you stand for, and you have something interesting or something, worth following or worth talking about. I think this is something that people really like to see.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I agree. So, I mean, what would your sort of advice be for somebody that wanted to get into television, that didn't know where to go? I mean, I think, did you say originally you were approached, or did you seek it? I can't remember what you said.
so it was different. So in the very first television show, the dating show that I've done, I was approached by the person that I wanted on the show with, and that person got approached by one of the casting directors online. So that actually came very much inbound. That I
Inbound.
didn't really have to do anything. It just, I guess, organically came my way. The second show, the business show, I saw an advert on one of the bigger casting platforms, and I thought it might be an interesting opportunity. And well, I got taken in the end. And for the third show, I was also approached and connected through a third party, through a friend of mine. So that also came through personal network and, I guess, accident or chance. But if people are actively seeking into getting into reality television, there's definitely platforms such as maybe Backstage, Mandy, Star Now, all the big popular platforms here in the UK. Internationally, I am not so sure. I think Backstage is also a very American-focused platform, so I've seen casting calls on there. Or, I mean, if you go to your favorite television show, if you've always wanted to be on The Apprentice or on Love Island, you can just go on their website and apply there. So that's one of the ways that you just go about it. Or you could, do a little bit of research on LinkedIn or on Instagram or whatever, and find out who the casting directors are of this particular television show and approach them directly and see if you could get a response from them. So I guess there's multiple ways of how to get you noticed. But I think the main point of advice would be to really know what you want to get out of it. Because I went on the first show like a headless chicken, which just sounded like a very good idea. Whereas for the second and the third show, I had a very clear agenda, what I wanted to get out of it. And that was, first of all, exposure. I knew I wanted to be on these shows for as long as possible. So that means not to get eliminated in the first or second episode. So I had to sort of, play within the agenda of the production and really understand, well, what is the production looking out for? What will make me stay on this show for as long as possible, even if I just don't win it? I mean, that would be the end goal, win the competition, win the shows. And go out there as a winner, because I guess these people get the most exposure. But the number one goal would be to just come as far in these things as possible. And then also to understand, well, what else are the casting directors looking out for? It's not only about skill, it's about entertainment. And how can you make yourself maybe funny or entertaining or engaging in a way that does not necessarily harm your personal brand? I mean, people who may react to different challenges in a very bad or toxic manner will also be portrayed like this on television, or even worse, because I think television makes everything either much worse or much better. If you're a naturally enthusiastic person, TV will make you even 10 times more of what you already are. But if you had a bad day, on television it's going to look like you're having a bad time overall. If that makes sense. So I think it's just about being very, very conscious about the dynamics that production companies will engage in. And that happens for a very good reason. I mean, for the production company, it's about creating entertainment and creating something that people want to watch. And they will purposefully try and make people uncomfortable. For example, in that business TV show, we were put under a lot of pressure. So we were given certain tasks and certain challenges, and we had only a limited amount of time to execute them. And we were purposefully put into situations where characters may clash or personalities may clash. and there was, obviously a competitive vibe between people, and that was all done on purpose because people want you to be uncomfortable and maybe go out of your way or react in a certain manner. And production companies will always look out for making you uncomfortable and making you emotional and provoke extreme reactions from you. And I think on the one hand side, it just creates momentum around you as a person. So that means maybe the person who is just misbehaving all the time and is just doing very toxic behavior all the time may not be so popular in the end, and engages in very negative behavior, but at the same time that person will gain momentum and may become, I guess, one of the most memorable characters of the whole show. So I guess you have to go in there with a bit of a strategy or a bit of a, what exactly do you want to get out of it? Do you just go there for fun? Do you want to get exposure? Do you want to be well liked? Do you want to win that show? If it's like a competitive series, you have to go out there and decide for yourself what it is that you want to get out of it. For me, it was a mixture between I like the experience as such, and to be honest with you, I do not regret a single moment of being on these television shows, even though they pushed me towards my personal edge, I guess. I do not regret a single moment of that.
Wow.
But at the same time, coming out of 3 television shows now, I have learned so much more about myself and what happens if people push me into a corner or put me under pressure. So you just need to be aware of your own self, and that your production companies will try to get the worst out of you or the best as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, no, and I think you come at this with real insight about understanding what are the aims of the production company. I mean, and let's look at TikTok, for example. That's an entertainment channel that is become so successful because people want to be entertained. They laugh, they smile, they get all of that emotional attachment. And when content has an emotional attachment to it, what do people do? They share it, they like it, they follow it, they engage with it. Bland just doesn't cut anymore, does it, really?
I think the good thing about TikTok for influencers and for brands is that TikTok still has the original algorithm that Instagram or Facebook used to have some time ago. So that means if you use the platform right, you can gain massive exposure overnight, just organically through the platform that you're engaging in, which is not the case anymore with Instagram or Facebook. And at the same time, it's short and compact content, and it's oftentimes transformative content. Well, people come from changing from one outfit to another one, or from a certain look to a completely different look. So it's all about transformation and short and sweet value that people bring, and that makes the platform so valuable. It's all about transformation, and about quick and short entertainment and value, right? Just having a random video will not go anywhere, but it sort of has to have a little agenda to it as well. If it's like a 8 to 10 second video, well, how can you tell a mini story in these 8 to 10 seconds? And I think these are the challenges that influencers and brands have as well. Well,
it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because there's been a real growth in episodal content. And if we look at Netflix, for example, more of us are looking at the episode, of the dramas, the stuff that's made up of a series of different programs, rather than maybe a film. And we're actually seeing this play out online as well with video content, so short bite-sized content, but people coming back time and time for the next one. So it sort of plays into what you've said there. Right, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you today. I could talk to you for so much longer, and I can't wait to see how these programs air. It's going to be I'll be glued to it, I have to say. How can people find out more about you, Luise?
I think the platform I'm most active on is Instagram. So it's Luise HHS, Luise HSS, and Luise written with a U. So it's LUISE HSS. Goodness,
Lovely.
that took me a long time to get it right.
Oh dear, that's great. Well,
That's great.
as I say, it's been lovely to speak to you, and
And likewise.
thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
And likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for another edition of Influence. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and give me your feedback, gordon@gordonglenister.com. Or you can follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, where you can also ask me a question. And if you're able to give us a 5-star review, we really do appreciate that. And also, if you want to help in creating an influencer marketing strategy, or you want to join the Influencer Marketing Roundtable weekly event, which is on a Wednesday at 9 o'clock UK time, head over to gordonglenister.com. You can find all the details. Thanks as always to my producer, Neil Whiteside from Freedom One. And until next time, from me, Gordon Bennister, it's